Hello guys, I think I am going to turn on my ring light. I thought I could do this without my ring light, but it made it look super dark. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Hello everybody. Oh, welcome. I'm going to keep talking while they notify everybody. Put on a blanket because it's snowing here. And that's cold. Don't do that. Oh, hi. Oh, wow, it's taking a while. There we go. Hello everyone. Welcome to the live. I think I'm gonna light a candle. Hi, how are you doing on this very intense energy week? Good, hopefully. Come on, candle. There we go. Hello. Welcome. Happy Thursday. Ooh, it's 2:20 where you am. That's neat. Where you are. I cannot talk. It's today. It's fine. It's like the third time that's happened. I was recording my meditation for my Patreons a little bit before this. So one of the tiers of my Patreon, every month you get a meditation, which is also an activation done by me in the Patreon, and I was recording that, and I couldn't enunciate my words to save my life. I had to re-record little sections of it multiple times just to get it all out. It's a really cool meditation. I'm super stoked on it, but it took me a while. I don't know what the energy is with today and words not being able to come out well, but it is. Oh, welcome everybody. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. I'm trying to get back in the swing of doing lives every Thursday and they're just hangout lives, just chat and talk about magic and whatever, chill sort of lives. But ever since, so Sacred Spaces was a couple weeks ago, our gathering, and since then I've just not quite caught up on my scheduled stuff. So yeah. Oh, Greg, I can never tell if it's the energy or if it's just me that can't make words. It's fair. I mean, truthfully, sometimes I'm okay, it's just me today. And sometimes I'm okay, there's something going on. There is a difference, energetically when it comes to that sort of stuff where you can kind of tell and pay attention. You're huh, this is kind of weird. Something feels like it's influencing my inability to speak versus the other way around where you're just I don't know, I'm just not in it today. So sometimes you can tell, sometimes, I mean, it doesn't usually typically matter all that much, but today is one of those days I'm man, I don't know what it is with communication, but it's just not flowing. So fun moment. The other night I heard, I want Alfredo, so I made Alfredo tonight. Oh, that's amazing! From one of your ghosts or guides or the people around you. That's amazing. I love that so much. Good job listening and making some Alfredo. Be sure you give them a little offering of it. Leave a little plate of it out. I was recently talking to one of the fairies that lives in my house and basically decided to start leaving more consistent offerings out, which apparently wasn't something that they were even asking for. But I was here, I'm having blueberries, you have blueberries, and it's been very well received. So I think food is a theme with some spiritual stuff right now. This is not the first person I heard it from either. I've been talking to people about it all week of I needed to make cupcakes. I left out this offering. I'm okay, guess this is what we're doing. Haven't been able to make it live. How did the event go? Oh, the event went amazing. Thank you so much for asking. So we did Sacred Spaces a couple weeks ago, which was Crystalline, Crystalline, Sophia, and Rebecca the Ghost Guide, and myself planned basically an in-person, high-vibration, magical, spiritual gathering. And it was so fun. It was so much fun. It was probably one of the coolest things I've ever done in my entire life, to be totally honest, and I cannot wait to do another one, which we will be doing. Announcements will be coming out on that fairly soon, so stay tuned. But it was an incredibly wonderful experience, and to see everyone gathered and to explore spirituality in a safe and ethical and supported way, and while also finding community. It's everything that I want, literally out of the world. So it was a really, really wonderful, pleasant experience. Yes. We will be doing another one. I know. Greg was there. A couple of people in here actually were there, which is pretty cool. Oh, I hope you attend the next one too. Please do. That would be amazing. Last few days the kids in elementary school have had wild energy. Yeah, I have 3 middle schoolers. Correct. Yeah, I have 3 middle school children, and the energy with them has been wild. Yesterday, all 3 of them came home basically in a meltdown, and I was like, okay, like that's the energy. How, like, it always manifests stronger with kids. Like, kids see it, and it's more of like in its more pure form. So for all of that, I was like, all right then, that's how the energy this week is rolling, which it is. This is how the energy of this week is rolling for sure. It's just this very intense, very emotional, very aggressive, lots of energy in our space sort of time that we're all having. So just take it easy, take it slow on yourself. Have I read the new Emily Wilde? So I haven't read the new one just yet. It was really weird. So the new Emily Wilde, I thought had been downloaded onto my phone for traveling back. I was going to listen to it for traveling back from Richmond because we were on the East Coast for the event. And turns out it hadn't been, but I didn't realize till I got on the plane. And so I listened to a different book that was downloaded onto my phone. And so I'm still kind of rolling with that, which is really, really good. I just finished listening to Master of Gin by P. Jelly Clark, and it's phenomenal. It's so, so, so good. I could not recommend it enough. There's one moment in the book where the Jinn are kind of talking together, like kind of as a collective, and it takes place in an alternative kind of fantasy Cairo at the turn of the century, so in around 1900. I think it takes place in like 1910. And it's so good, and it's a murder mystery, but there's one point where all the Jinn are kind of talking together, and no spoilers, but it's exactly what it's like to talk to spiritual beings and exactly how they interact, and it's just so well done. So I was listening to that, but I plan on listening to the next Emily Wilde really, really soon. I really want to. I'm excited about it. I'm really, really excited about it. Oh, yeah, you saw me on Jeff's podcast today. Yeah, thank you. It was such a fun conversation. Jeff's a wonderful person and a pretty good friend. We've worked together in like readings and things like that before, and super awesome. So I was so excited when he asked me to come on the show, and it was a really fun conversation. Like, I thought we were just going to talk about like, because the podcast is called Big Dating Energy, right? So I thought we were just going to talk about like love stuff and soulmates and twin flames. And we ended up getting like deep, deep, deep into like the energy of how the universe works and like theoretical understanding of energetic principles and explaining different like what happens after you pass and all these different things. That was super duper different. It was super different than what I was expecting. So it was such a fun conversation. I loved having that conversation and like really getting to dive into all those topics. Anytime I can go like super duper duper woo woo and like really deep on something, I'm always into it. So even though it was like a dating podcast, we ended up going like really, really deep, and also talked about things like soulmates and twin flames and things like that too. So if you guys want to check it out, it's called Big Dating Energy. It came out literally today, I think, with Therapy Jeff, who's on here as well, who has fantastic content, by the way. You should check out his content too, because it was super fun. Someone asked a question a little while ago, and I wanted to see if I could catch it, but I don't know where it went. Okay. Oh, you've never seen me live. I'm so glad. Welcome to the live. Welcome to the live. They're really casual and chill, and I don't know, just answer questions, and we talk about magic stuff and the energy that's going on right now. Which is really intense energy right now. So if you're having a hard time with stuff, totally understand. It was really interesting when I was looking at the energy of this week on Monday. I was like, ooh, wow, there's a lot of tension, and it's very aggressive, and there's like a lot of like energy about it. And there's a lot of kind of dissolution of relationships and shedding off of things that don't really matter as much to you anymore, and understanding your morals on a deeper level. Like, it was a whole thing, and I'm like, okay, that's what we're doing with the energy of this week. And so I've been really just focusing on trying to like maintain spiritual hygiene and keep my energy nice and clear, and talking to my guide folks, which there's a lot of spiritual energy going on right now as far as like beings that are around us or that interact with us quite often kind of coming up and expressing themselves, like even to the point where I've seen a massive uptake. And I actually am not on a ton of the spiritual TikTok stuff, because there's not a lot of there's some really amazing spiritual practitioners. I'm not saying everybody, but sometimes that just gets like into a really yucky space, and it's a lot of new age stuff that I don't necessarily align with, and then it's not very fun to kind of look at all of those TikToks and want to respond to every single one of them, or want to add clarity and things. So it gets a little exhausting. So I'm not super on the spiritual side of TikTok. However, which is, I know, weird. But however, there is a lot of videos popping up on my feed this week talking about, like, you know, showing evidence of something talking to them, or even how Greg was just talking about someone said Alfredo, or that they wanted Alfredo, and lots of people perceiving different ghosts, spirits, entities around them this week. And it's going to continue on, but I think with all this tension energy, they have more like energy and fuel to kind of communicate better, which has been really intriguing to see how that's been showing up for people in my life. And then also I have people I've seen on here and clients I've been working with and stuff like that. So really, really interesting to check out. But if you've been feeling that energy around you, or if you've been feeling like the communication of beings in your space, like, yeah, absolutely. It's been a lot. Someone said, oh yeah, what is your definition of psychic and psychic medium? How do you classify? So this is a really wonderful conversation to have. I call myself a psychic because it is the largest umbrella term that I can find for all of the stuff that I personally do. So I do pretty much a little bit of everything. From everything from predominantly, I like working with your spirit guides, talking to your spirit guides, doing a lot of energy work as far as like block pulling and releasing and helping you unblock your gifts, activating those types of things. But I also do a lot of past life work. We also talk to higher self. I do a lot of higher self work, soul typing work. I can do mediumship stuff, talking to ancestors, talking to ghosts, all sorts of different stuff. I can pretty much do all of it. I've been doing this a really long time. So I call myself a psychic because it's a nice umbrella term that just means I have the ability to tune into energy. And I can also do future sight stuff. I just don't like that as much. When we talk about mediumship stuff, it's kind of a classification underneath the psychic umbrella, because mediums are still essentially psychic people, but mediums tend to be people who work with people who have passed on in some way. So whether that is your past loved ones, or that is people who have passed on and now in like ghost form, or even sometimes animal communicators will refer to themselves as like animal mediums, and they will talk to either present animals around you or animals that have passed on, that kind of thing, which is another thing I love to do. Me and animals have a bond. So for me, the reason I call myself a psychic is just because there's no real other word that I feel comfortable that encompasses all that I do that people are going to understand on a wide scale. A lot of times when people choose the terms like medium or spiritualist or spiritual consultant, it's just their choice. Like truly, they're kind of all interchangeable. I will say with like medium or energy healer, those are a little bit more specific. But that's why I don't call myself that, because I do a lot more other things. And though I do speak to loved ones, it's not usually my favoriteest thing to do. I can totally do that. And it's not like I'm like, oh gosh, they want me to speak to a loved one. It's not that so much. It's just not what my energy gets excited to do and not what I'm most aligned with doing. So I throw a lot more energy at developing other areas before I develop that one. So it's why I don't necessarily like communicate about that as much, if that makes sense. And that's why I don't call myself a medium. That's a really fabulous question though. And the truth of it is the words are kind of undefined in a lot of ways, because a lot of people just kind of call themselves whatever feels right. And that's totally fine. Like that's the area we're in the spiritual world right now, where everything's kind of up in the air and we're all just trying to figure it out because it's, for the first time, pretty much in collective memory, this type of stuff is to the forefront, and this type of stuff is becoming more and more popular and understood, and more people are turning towards understanding a lot of this, and more vibration is raising, and more understanding of the universe at large is coming in, and different spiritual beings are coming to the surface, all this stuff. So we're all just kind of rolling with it, going that way. Yeah. Amazing. Oh, Bear says your readings are the best. You're so sweet. Thank you so much. That means so much to me. I really, really love working with energy and tuning in and readings for you guys. It means so much to me that I can do this and help you, and it's just the best. So like, I always feel so honored when anyone trusts me with their energy. Like even just being here on the live, like thank you for trusting me with your energy. It means a lot to me, and I think I don't take it for granted. I really appreciate it. What does it mean when an ear or the top of your head gets super hot suddenly? So a couple different things. If you get physical sensations like that you feel are connected to spiritual stuff, first of all, that is called clairsentience. It is one of the 8 different clairsenses, which are essentially just the psychic senses. It's how you perceive energetic information. It doesn't necessarily correlate to what energetic information is perceived always. It's how you're perceiving that. So perhaps for you, if your head is getting hot or your ears getting hot, maybe that's a sign for you that maybe there's a ghost in the room, or maybe your spirit guide's near, or maybe something like that. It can mean something individual for you because you're perceiving that energy in the way that you're naturally perceiving it. Everyone has psychic senses. Everyone uses psychic senses. Some are stronger for each person than others, but everyone has them. If you want to figure out more about what your psychic sense is, I do have a free thing in my link in my bio where you can click on that and download a free exercise on essentially how to figure that out. It's really fun and it's really easy, and then you can start leaning in on that when it comes to your psychic stuff. What I will say is when you have that sensation, if you want to figure out like, what does that mean for me? If you're having any sort of sensation, whether that's like heat or pressure or chills, or you always hear a certain sound or something like that, pause and ask, like, okay, what is this about? And then run through your other senses. Are you seeing anything, feeling anything, knowing anything, sensing anything, like picking up on anything at all? And start to build it off of that. And you can also start to like kind of play with it a little bit and be like, okay, is this my guides? If it's my guides, make it warmer. If it doesn't get warmer, be like, okay, is it a ghost in the room? Make it warmer. That kind of thing. And kind of build off of that space, which is totally fine to do. And it's going to be a little bit of an experimentation until you kind of get confirmation about what that means. You can also like pull cards, etc. How do you not pick up on everything everywhere you go, or even through the phone? That is a great question. I have really, really solid spiritual boundaries. I've been psychic forever. So let's just start there. Like, this is something I've been doing since I was an itty bitty little kid. And for a long time, I thought it was very, very normal. Thought everyone could do this. Obviously not the case, in the way that I do it. Everyone does it in their own way. But when I was little, I was like, everyone could see and feel and sense and hear everything. So it was like sensory overload a lot. Now I'm into a place where I have really created spiritual boundaries. So for example, through the phone, unless I'm tuning in for an energy or tuning in for someone's loved ones or tuning in for someone's guides or tuning in for someone's something, I'm not, like, that room is closed in my brain, basically. I'm not on that elevator floor, that switch is off, like I'm closed off to that. If I want to turn it on, I could open up that room and let it all flood in and kind of narrow it down. The truth of it is, it takes practice, but you get to have your own spiritual boundaries. You get to choose when it's on and off. It just takes a little while to learn sometimes. But that is essential and really important to remember. So like, if I'm going to the grocery store or whatever, I will turn off everything for the most part, except for like my own connection to my own guides, which is pretty much always open because I've gotten to that point where I don't need to turn that one on and off. I just want them around. But for other people, it definitely is a on-off situation that I turn in, which is a great question, by the way, because I know that kind of is daunting and people get scared about that of like, what if I'm going to be like Teresa Caputo and just have to approach everybody? One, that's not very ethical. And two, you don't. And three, you can absolutely have that switch on and off if you want to, which is a great question. Can you get downloads from spirits that are not your guides or are tricking you? I'm not sure what you mean are tricking you, but you can absolutely get downloads from spirits that are not your guides. What I will say is you always want to think about, just like if you were reading through history and you want to think about the motivations or the understanding of the person that is writing that particular story in history. For example, like Julius Caesar is going to write about the Gaulish people being savages because Julius Caesar's conquering them. You know what I mean? You want to think a little bit, if they're not your guide, because your guides are helping you. If they're not your guide, it's important to look at it just like with a little bit of a critical eye, just because you don't necessarily know that being, unless it's like a deity or something like that. But you might not necessarily know that being, so you might want to take some time to understand that information, what their motivations might be, anything like that. I don't know about the tricking you part of that sentence. Like, can beings trick you? Totally. They definitely can. When in doubt, bug your guides about it, and lean in on that. And there's a bunch of different stuff you can do with that. I won't fully go into it on the live here, but, as far as them tricking you, it's kind of easy once you start thinking about their motivations to try to figure out like, okay, is there motivations to help me with something? Is there motivations to help me get understanding of something? Or is there motivations to get me to do something else that doesn't necessarily feel helpful to me or beneficial to me or anything like that? And do I have a like bond of energy understanding so that I can understand what they're trying to do, essentially? Like, do I have a trust there? If for example, my spirit guides, if they tell me to go get a hairbrush, even if I'm like, I don't see how that's in my benefit, but fine, I guess I'll go get it. It's because I've trusted them enough because they've done it through the years. If it's a new being, don't go get the hairbrush. Test them on it, that kind of thing. Hopefully that makes sense. Are there ever malevolent spirits messing with us? Yes, sometimes. Yeah, there are. Like, there's not, okay, this is the way I put it. Yeah, there's some yucky people out there. And so then there's some yucky spirits out there because they were either originally yucky people or they came from different elements of the universe that aren't all necessarily like loving and happy. So yeah, can negative, bad, yucky spirits be out there? For sure. Are they out there more than the nice ones or the normal ones or the neutral ones? No. Not typically, unless you're like in spaces where they would like conglomerate, or if something, in a place where something really bad just happened or something like that. So can they mess with you? Totally. There's definitely spiritual things out there that are not fantastic. But more often than not, they're either concerned with their own stuff or they're not messing with you, or you know that they are yucky because you will get that feeling of like, oh, this is bad news. Like any video you've ever seen on, things people have seen in the woods, essentially, or things like that. And you get that feeling of like, oh, I'm not just scared because this is weird. I'm scared because I feel like this is bad news. That's the difference. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. But yeah. Yeah. Hold on. Someone just said something. What if I'm just really bad at hearing or understanding my guides? Well, here's the thing. You get to try as much as you want. And I would go ahead and release that block that you're really bad at it. And instead be like, okay, I'm learning how to understand what they're sending me. But also, your guides are magical, omnipotent-ish beings that you gave your map to. Make them work to help you understand. Like, it's not all on you to understand their communication. And I think that comes from like a deeply internalized, like Christianity almost belief or organized religion belief is like, oh, we just have to accept what's given to us. By no means. If you're like, hey, I have a question, I'm asking for an answer, whether it's an answer to the question or a validation or something like that, if you're like, okay, I'm asking for this, and then you don't seem to understand it or don't seem to see the messages, be like, yo, guys, like, I need to be sent things I understand. Like, please, like, help me understand this. Help give me validation for this. I'm not getting it, so you guys need to try harder. They don't have to worry about when they eat or sleep or anything like that. Make them work at it. Like, that is totally fine thing to do. So don't take a little bit of that pressure off of you of like needing to understand your guides. And also you can take baby steps, right? Like, okay, give me a validation sign that you're with me. This, I really want a repeating number, or I really want this specific type of bird, or, a purple turtle, like whatever it is, and ask for those validation signs. Now, you might have someone talking about the color purple while holding a turtle. That still counts. So that's the other part of that is like, let the validations come to you. And when you get them, be like, yay, just celebrate them and then build up from there. You don't have to have a full philosophical discussion with your guides right off the bat. It can be something that you grow into because your human brain's also a contender in this. Your human brain's also poking at stuff, right? And being like, is that actually something we want to let in, or that I don't trust that, or anything like that. So that can help a lot. Also talk to them about random normal stuff, because your brain is way more likely to let stuff in if you're just asking them like what you should eat for lunch, instead of being like, should I leave my job? But your brain's like, oh, we're already freaked out about that. Like asking things like, what should I watch tonight? Or, should I go out with my friends this weekend or stay home? And you don't even have to do everything they say. It's just about getting those messages. Or what should I wear today? Or should I play with my cards tonight or just take a nap? But what should I watch on TV? Like little things like that. Asking those questions and then playing off of whatever your strongest clear senses are, the ways that you perceive energy, is going to really, really helpful. Really, really be helpful. Do you still work with Apollo? Also, how do you know he wanted to work with you? So that is a whole deep dive thing. I have worked with Apollo for 14 years now? A long time. I've worked with him for a very long time. So I still definitely work with him. We chat all the time. Currently, I'm trying to get him to come through on my Phasma box software, which is like a paranormal investigation software where you can talk to beings at different kind of energy levels. So whether it's like ghosts or guides or whatever, I'm trying to get him to come through that, and he's having a very hard time with it. That's what we've been working on lately, which is very funny for me. He's really frustrated about it. And don't worry, I double checked, I could tell you, which he wasn't pleased about, but I'm still saying it anyway because I think it's hilarious. But yeah, I still totally work with him. The way he kind of found me, or we kind of found connection, at the time I was a practicing Hellenic polytheist. So I was actively practicing the modern revival of the ancient Hellenic religion. Which was doing a lot of God and deity work, etc. But I really didn't understand spirit guides as much. So I was kind of just like looking like, oh, what deity would I like to work with? And I kind of threw it out there to them one day, like, I need deities to like claim me. Like, claim me and decide that you want to work with me. And he did very abruptly one day, like stopped me in a patch of sunlight basically and like, yo. And I was like, oh, okay, so you want to work with me. And then I started getting a deeper understanding. I'm like, oh, so you have actually worked with me my whole life. I just didn't understand it. And then so I've actively worked with him kind of since then. But if you're feeling drawn to work with any specific deity, then I would do a little bit of research on how working with that deity works, follow your intuition, and just play with it and see what develops from there. So yes, I do still work with Apollo. He has feelings. Hold on. Callum, come here. My dog's like scratching at the door. You don't, come here. Come here. No? Okay. You just lay there then. Be that way. Fine. How do you guide your kiddos? I would love any tips. The first thing is to make it normal. So when it comes to like working with intuitive kiddos or like guiding your kiddos or helping them feel more comfortable with this type of stuff, the first thing is to make it kind of a normal conversation. So for example, if they're like, oh, like I talk and play with my imaginary friend, be like, oh, tell me about them. What do they like to do? What are they like? How do they show up for you? Have they ever told you anything, you know, about yourself? Or like just kind of explore it with them. It depends on what ages your kids are. But you know, it can kind of grow from there. So like when my kids were really little, we did a lot of like, oh, this is your calm down rock, which was like a crystal. And we would hold the crystal and put all our energy into the crystal that was making us so amped and help ourselves calm down that way. And we would also practice like moving energy with our bodies and shooting it out there. And we would talk about imaginary friends and maybe friends that aren't so imaginary and that are around. And, you know, they would see me do different like deity things or talk to my guides. And I would just kind of explain what that is. Now, if it comes to, you know, as they get older or they're exploring more abilities, again, talk about it on like a real tangible level. Like, go with a, okay, I believe you approach. How are we going to work with this? Which does so much. Also getting them acquainted, being like, hey, you got beings around you that want to help you out. So don't be afraid to ask for their help, or have, you know, if you're scared at night and having a hard time, like ask your guides to come in and give you nice protective energy. All sorts of different things like that. Really, really great ways to help intuitive kids. Other thing I would say too is affirmation work works really, really well for kids. And starting with affirmation things of like, you know, I am magical, I am divinely supported, today is what I make it, like things like that will really, really help as well, which is a really tangible thing to do. I let them play with my tarot cards. What do you think? Cool. That's amazing. Let them play with your tarot cards. My kids all have tarot cards. That's awesome. I never heard of Apollo. Is that one of your own spirit guides? Apollo, like the deity Apollo from ancient Greece. Yeah. And he is one of my spirit guides, like actually, but he is also like the Grecian deity of the sun and healing and music and art and oracles. He has a long resume that I will give him credit and mention. How did you approach working with Boris/dragons in general? So here's a great question. Dragons are an interesting bunch, and I've worked quite a bit with dragons even outside of Boris at this point in time. They're very, very interesting. I'm actually going to do a like longer deep dive YouTube into dragons in general, because I know that's a major theme right now for a lot of people. It's coming up. Boris approached me. Boris approached me. I did not approach Boris. Boris slammed into my back one day when I was driving, and I was like, the fuck is this? And he was like grabbing on. And apparently he had come on planet when I had come on planet, but he had gotten separated from me somehow and like didn't know where I was, and he was supposed to be a guide for me and didn't know where I was. And apparently the longer dragons like stay in this realm, the like size, they lose size. And so by the time he found me, which was a long time after I came on planet, I was probably, I don't know, 24, maybe 24, I think. He was like tiny little guy and like grabbed on, and now he's regained his size and now exists kind of in the other realm. And we kind of work with that. But dragons are super interesting. Dragons are really interesting. They're very wise. Boris is the name he chose for himself. That's not his actual dragon name. That is the name he told me to call him and that I could call him openly, which is a big theme with dragons. They will not share their names, or they will share their names only with you and not have them share otherwise. But usually they just pick a name arbitrarily that you can call them, because our mouths don't make dragons speak very easy. So a lot of their names, yeah, don't necessarily work like that. So yeah, if you want to approach dragons, if you're feeling called to them, first treat them with the utmost respect and see if they actually are reaching out to you. Or you can always just offer them things kind of the way you would with deity work, and kind of go from there and build off of that, because that is how they roll. They are very much in a reciprocal respect sort of way, unless they slam into you because they accidentally got separated from you and poof, you have a dragon, which is how it happened with me, which is not normal. It's not typically how it happens. That is just how I found my dragon. And not everyone has one. And I will be really clear about that. Like there's honestly not that many. I mean, there's a lot of dragons, but prospectively with other beings in the universe, there's not as many there. But not everyone has a dragon. There's dragons that aren't guides. There's dragons that are. They're kind of really interesting beings that exist out there, and they're in kind of like a next door realm. So like here's our Earth, and then we have Venn diagrams of other realms intersecting ours, and dragons are in one of those. Yeah. How do you know if you have a dragon? Well, just start reaching out. It's probably maybe one of your guides, or maybe wants to work with you. So I would ask, be like, hey, if there's thank you for the little heart. So if there's any dragons that are around me that want to work with me, like, please let me know, and see how things show up for you. See if anything comes through in your dreams, pay attention to your clairsenses, that kind of thing. Yeah. I only knew he was a dragon because you popped up and it clicked. Oh, I'm so glad. That is amazing. How far in the future can you read energy? So that is a great question. I can read energy pretty far in the future. The problem is the further the timeline goes out, the more wobbly it gets. So like, right, I will read, I can do future sight pretty close up, with pretty decent, like, detailed accuracy within the next maybe, those are cool. Is that like a cotton candy heart? Thank you. It looks like one of those trees from the Lorax. Anyway, not to get distracted. No ADHD moments. But I can do future sight stuff with like pretty, very detailed accuracy, usually in the next like week or two, like super detailed, like this type of thing. However, as it gets further out from that, it starts to be more like general energy trends and things that I see happening, or things that guides are telling me are most likely going to happen. The thing is here, we still have our own free will. We still have our own ability to manifest things in and change things and switch timelines and do all sorts of different stuff with the future. And so the further I look out, I can go for about a year. It's as much as I usually like doing, because I can do a year with pretty decent accuracy because the trends are pretty well set at that point. That doesn't mean it's 100% and you can totally change things and manifest things and switch it, but it's pretty good. And it kind of lights up different energies, and I can kind of go from there. Sometimes I'll even get a really specific timeline on a really specific thing, and that's usually like given to me from the person's guides or my guides being like, this is really the timeline that we're kind of looking at for that. And I'll be like, cool. Now going further out from that, the energy trends get more generalized because again, there's more mutability. So I can kind of look at like more branching energy trends basically and be like, okay, well, it looks like sometime in the next 3 years, you're definitely going to find some sort of new home. You're going to do some sort of move, but it's kind of, I don't have exact timeline on it. It's pretty wishy-washy, but that does feel like a big theme coming up. So the further out we get, the kind of more that way it does. What I can do with pretty decent accuracy though, is predict, or like look at the energy of like the arc of society and collective. And I can look at that for future sight really well. So, as far as things that are going to happen in a given like arc time stuff. That's why I'm like, hey, our vibration of our planet's rising. I can see it really clearly for now and into basically the next 10 years, the vibration increasing, more spiritual activity, more people waking up, more things happening, all of that kind of coming together. So that's kind of how it works for me. And every psychic's different, but future sight stuff, it's so mutable. I always talk about it in that mutability because it can change. You guys have so much more power over your future than you give yourselves credit for. Like basically in my understanding, we decide on a couple different things we're doing in this lifetime, whatever those things might be. I don't always think those things are learning, but that is a whole TED talk I could do. But we decide on a couple different things that we're going to do in this lifetime, whether that's 15 or whether that's 5 or whether that's 3 that we're like definitely going to achieve in incarnating here. And then we kind of plot those out, and then we kind of give our guides our map and be like, hey, these are the things I need to hit. Help me get there. And then they kind of fill in the blanks and help us get there. Hello. Hello from Eastern Pennsylvania. Hi. Do I do yes or no questions? How do I work? So in my readings, a basic reading with me is what we do is we'll start out and I'll always clear the energy of the space, make sure it's just our stuff in this zone because who knows what else we're carrying with us. And I tend to get information about your energy from that. So I will do a nice clearing and then I'll start to understand energy like around you, what's going on kind of in your space or immediate messages from your guides, that kind of thing, just by that. Then I always open it up for like any questions. Like if anyone has any questions, and this is in like one-on-one readings. I never do readings on lives like this, but this is like if you book a reading with me, this is kind of how it works. And if you have a couple of areas or topics you want me to ask questions on, then I ask your guides, your higher self, etc. Or we look at your past lives, or we look at whatever the things that you're trying to do. We'll look at those areas and kind of dive into that. The other thing that I do throughout the entirety of a reading, and I always bring this up, is I'm in communication with your guides the entire time. And they oftentimes will show me blocks, limiting beliefs, things like that. And with those blocks, limiting beliefs, I know how to pull and release them energetically. So no matter what it is, we do a lot of block pulling and releasing in any reading I do, so that you can, those things that are jamming up your life, we can release those so they stop jamming up your life and stop making things extra hard on you. Whether it's in your psychic ability space, or in the love space, or family, or healing, or future sight, or past life blocks, whatever it is. So we do a lot of that in my readings as well. So it's kind of a really comprehensive, which is why I call them soul readings. Like if you look on my website, which I do have readings available. They are about 6 months from now. I do book out rather far. But I would love to do a reading for you if anyone wants to do that. But soul readings, I call them that because we do so many things. Like there's so many stuff going on. Yeah. I have so many writing questions for you. Oh, amazing. I love talking writing and channeled writing, and how fiction and storytelling is how we're healing the world, and you name it. Yes, characters are real. The readings are great. Thank you, Greg. That means so much to me. Someone said something I really wanted to figure out. Oh, do different guides show up for different things? I want to make sure I answer that question because it just popped up. Yeah. So, guides tend to have 1 to 3 kind of roles they kind of play for you. So basically when you're selecting your spirit guides, before you're coming on planet, you're like, hey, I'm going to do some of these things. I need some help in these areas. Insert areas here, whether you're I really need some protection, or maybe you're oh, I'm going to need some help with family stuff, or I'm going to need some help with magic stuff, or I'm going to need some help actually learning, and I need a guide to call me out on my shit. Whatever it is, it's your choice before you come on planet, and you're hey, and you go to either beings you know or worked with before, or beings that specialize or volunteer, whatever. There's a whole myriad of reasons that a guide might work with you, and you kind of go to them and you're hey, I need help in this area, and that guide's cool, I can help with that. And we'll grab, you guys will sign a contract, and then they'll pop in whenever you decide, kind of in this life space. So sometimes, yeah, they handle one area, specifically, maybe you have a guide that just helps with inspiration. You just have that's all they ever do. They only show up when they need to give you some inspiration or help you understand inspiration. Or maybe you have a guide that just helps you with earth life things, where you live, where you work, what you eat, just very tangible things that is kind of all the time, 24/7, all around. Or you might have a guide that just is supposed to give you 2 messages, one when you're 22 and one when you're 40. And they will come in and give you those 2 messages, and that's their whole deal. So it's not a rule in general. It's not everyone has this and this and this type of guide. Everyone has guides. They just serve whatever purposes you kind of decided they would serve and you guys agreed on. That being said, as you get to know your guides more, they become way more friend-like and they hang out a lot more. So my guides used to have more defined roles. They don't as much anymore. They kind of blend over with each other and hang out a lot. Do you have any human guides? Yeah. So, well, sort of. So I have people I have incarnated with in the past that are my guides. And yeah, I also have the main character who lived in the ancient past, by the way. But the main character of a book that I finished writing, but I'm just working on editing. Her name's Lacusta. She was a poisoner in ancient Rome, and she is one of my guides as well. She's a human. I mean, she shows up as a human. Her higher self, I'm sure, is something else, but she always shows up as a human. Do your spirit guides have names? So, names are weird. Names are really, really weird with spirit because naming things is a very human convention. It is very much this layer of the universe cake. It is very much derived from the fact that we are the only sentient beings on this layer of the universe cake. Most other layers of universe cake, most of our other realms, etc., have all sorts of different types and species of beings that are just as sentient or more sentient than we are, right? So it's a very unique space to be in here with kind of just us. So with spirit guide names, some of them are like, yeah, I totally have this name, or you can call me this, whatever. It's not really my name, but call me this. Some of them don't have one. Some of them have one that they don't maybe want to share it. Some of them might have a name that we just can't form with our human mouths, or that isn't through words. Maybe it's just an impression. So naming is really, really human. What I will always say though is like, you can call them whatever you want. If they don't like it, they can ask you to change it. So if there is a guide and you want to know their name, or it really helps you to know their name, to know who you're talking to, and they're not giving you one, or you don't know what to call them, pick one. And they can change it if they want. I once called a guide Banana Hammock for like 6 months because he wouldn't tell me his name. He did eventually tell me his name. Then he learned what a banana hammock was and was very upset with me. Not like he was upset with me like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna be your guide, but just like, are you kidding me right now? That's what you picked? I was like, well, you wouldn't tell me your name. So I picked the name I wanted to give you. So that's what I did. Tips on figuring out what business I'm supposed to be doing. Right now is a great time for figuring out those kinds of things. I will say, probably before, I think by April, a lot of people are going to have a lot more direction. First thing, whenever you're talking about business or job or career, screw those words. Those words suck. Job and career specifically have this implied energy of forever. So if you talk about something as this is my job or this is my career, there's an energy there like, well, if you don't do it forever, you're somehow going to fail. And I reject that completely. I don't think that's the original intent of those words. I think it's what society has programmed those words to mean at this point in time though. So I always recommend stop thinking about it in a, for what am I going to do forever? And start thinking about it more in a, what do I feel inspired to do? What do I feel excited to do? Also, even just talking about like your job or your career, talking about it as what you do for abundance. Like, what do you do for a living? Oh, for abundance right now, I do this and I can change my mind. And that doesn't make me any less successful at it. So taking some pressure off of yourself as far as deciding what you're going to do that's going to be your successful business for the rest of your life. Instead, ask things along the lines of like, what do I want to do right now? What would be the most abundance right now? How would I feel the best doing? What would I feel the best doing right now? What feels the most aligned for me to do right now? And kind of let yourself brainstorm in that way. Stay-at-home mom is a wonderful thing to do. Fantastic. Is that my natural hair color or is it dyed? So my natural hair color is a little bit less red than this. This is a little bit brighter. It's like kind of like a red blonde, strawberry blonde situation. This is a henna hair color that I use, which hairdressers hate, and I know that. But it works really, really well in my hair, and I've been literally using it forever. These are like little highlighty bits, which is just lifted bleach. That's it. You don't even have to tone it. It's just lifted. These are just lifted bleaches, little bleach strips. So, yeah, but my hair is almost this color, which makes it this color, which is why I'm always like hesitant to tell you like brand and stuff because, you know, hair color base changes a lot, but it's like a henna. I forget what brand it is. It has a little fox on it. I forget the name of it. Be warned though, hairdresser's not a big fan of henna because it's hard to lift off of your hair. So just keep that in mind. Can fictional characters be in your space? Yes. Everything exists in energetic reality, and the book writing program that I run literally teaches you how to channel in your characters from wherever they are in the universe. So absolutely. And sometimes that's awesome. And sometimes there's some book characters I'm like, ooh, that sucks that being exists somewhere out in the universe. Yuck. But truly that you can totally channel them in. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can I explain that? Yeah. So, if you think about everything being true in energetic reality, it kind of comes from a couple different ways, and not to get too deep into it because it gets into a lot of different schools of energetic thought and study, but your characters can come from a couple pages over on the book of this realm from you, maybe. So like on this layer of the universe cake, but a couple pages over, and you're channeling them in either after they've lived this life experience or maybe in the experience they're already having. So you're kind of telling their story over here, a couple pages away from them, as far as like timelines go and things like that, depending upon the character. Or maybe you're tapping into another realm or another reality, etc., and channeling in characters and asking them for their story from their experience in that reality, in what happened to them there. And there's infinite realities, there's infinite consciousness, it's all expansive and all massive, but you can definitely channel them in and tap into them, and ask them advice and those types of things. Totally. Just remember, they are whole and complete beings and whole and complete people. That is my only caveat when I say that, is like they very much are full beings in and of themselves. So sometimes you might be like, oh, I want to talk to them. And then they're like, yeah, not right now. And you're like, okay, fine, but they're busy. They're beings. They're people out there. So absolutely, yeah, you can totally channel in book characters. That's absolutely something you can do. And you can literally write, if you get an inspiration or an idea for a book, sometimes it's the characters giving it to you. Sometimes it's your guides being like, now it's time to have this. Maybe you agreed with the characters before you came on planet, which are, again, full and complete beings, that you would write their story. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things that can go on. Red Manacle on my recommendation, and you don't know how to get over that book hangover? I am so sorry, because I don't know what to get you out of the book hangover. I'm so sorry. Manacled is a fan fiction by Sen Liu, and it is one of the most incredible books I've ever read, and I don't even like the source material for it, so it's amazing. I highly recommend it, but it will rip your heart out and stomp on it repeatedly. It's so good. I even had it bound, like a copy of it bound for me, fan fiction style, because I like desperately wanted to have it. To get out of that hole as far as good books to read, so I just read Master of Jinn by Master of Jinn, Djinn, by P. Djeli Clark. Oh my gosh, so good, so fun. Murder mystery and fantasy Cairo at the turn of the century. It's amazing. It's great. I highly recommend that book. It'll kind of give you a different kind of change of pace. Ooh, yay, thank you. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, also incredible. Again, very nice change of pace, very immersive world. Pull you right in. You'll feel really good after reading that one. If you want another book that's going to like hit those heartstrings, not quite as bad as Manacled, but still kind of hit you, I highly recommend The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Haro. So good. One of my favorite reads from last year. It'll make it on the book sleeve. So for those of you guys who don't know, I have a book rating system. So I will listen to it or read it digitally. If I really like it, I will purchase it for the bookshelf. If I really, really, really like it and it changes my entire whole life and outlook, it goes tattooed on my arm. I have a Narnia tattoo and a Brandon Sanderson tattoo, and is more that I'm going to be getting in the next year. So, yeah. Oh, thank you for saying I'm comforting. I appreciate you too. That means so much to me. I love that. Can you talk about cryptids and their energy, Bigfoot, etc.? I can. What I will say is all of the different types of beings that exist out there that I think would fall into the cryptid category all have their own stuff going on. So there's no like general blanket where I can be like, oh, their energy is like this. For them, it is really, really complicated, and there's a whole lot of things going on. I do think a lot of them have actually come through from other layers of the universe cake. So if like we're here on this layer of the universe cake, there's a whole lot of stuff above us. We're kind of in like the mid to lower section. Some of the cryptids have kind of come up through a weird thing from a couple layers below. And so their energy is very heavy and not very lovely and doesn't feel magical. It feels kind of scary. Now, that's not all of them. For Bigfoot example, I think that Bigfoot is a leftover from when the realms, and there's not just one, by the way, there's many Bigfoot, but from when the realms were more crossed over, back when our vibration was a lot higher, and then they kind of shrank, and a lot of those beings kind of got left behind out of their own realm, and now it's kind of opening back up again, so we're having more access to realms. So they might be coming over from a side realm, that kind of thing. Love my hand. But, yeah, so they might be like popping over from like a side realm and that kind of thing. So sometimes they just genuinely like don't want to hang out with us. They're just doing their own thing and we stumble across them. Sometimes they are trying to work with us. Sometimes they're trying to be mean to us. There's a bunch of different stuff. Yeah. How do I decode the ear ringing I get? Great question. So ear ringing can mean a couple different things. First, always make sure it checks out medically first, because we need a balance. We are physical and spiritual beings having an existence here. So like things like mental health and physical health are incredibly important. So always pay attention to that. But if it's not something like that and you're like, okay, it does happen, always first pause and be like, okay, what am I feeling about this? Like what's going on with this ear ringing? And go through your other senses. What are you seeing, sensing, hearing, feeling, knowing, tasting, smelling about the ear ringing? Anything else that's coming up. Even if it makes no sense, just notice it. Be like, I have a weird metallic taste in my mouth. I'm just going to note that down. I have a just knowing that someone's tapping me on my head. I'm going to note that down. Do that repeatedly over the ear ringing. See if there's any correlation, if things continue to happen in that same way. The other thing to do is be like, okay, ear ringing. I think it's my guides. I'm going to decide it's my guides. If it's not, I need other messages that confirm it's something else. So then when your ear ringing happens, be like, okay, guides, thank you for the validation. I hear you. Can you please give me more clarity on what this is? And then again, go through your senses. And that's how you can start to kind of decode it. I do recommend writing down the information that you pick up on. It gets a lot easier to understand the more that you see the correlating patterns. If you can just even note a quick little thing on your phone, and just like boom, 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 it's this. That'll help you really understand the definition of what it means for you, and then grow and expand upon that too, and start using it more as a tool instead of just something you're getting given randomly on occasion. Great question. Okay, someone just asked me what my favorite Harry Potter character is. First and foremost, when we talk about Harry Potter, I got to cover two things. J.K. Rowling is a yucky, icky person, and I don't condone anything she has said or done, basically ever. Second thing, I read Harry Potter as an adult, and I am not nostalgic towards it at all. I read it as an adult who is already a published author and who is mentoring authors and who has her own publishing company. So my opinion of that work is very different than most people's opinion of that work, because I read it with very critical eyes. So not really into it very much. I have read it. I read it to my kids. I did the voices, the whole 9 yards. I will say my favorite character is most likely the twins, though I don't appreciate her using them as a plot device. Bothered me. I like the twins though. I also really like Luna, which should come as no surprise because of everything about me. And Hagrid, flawed as he is good. I just don't think there's enough criticism of the actual like content of that book, because a lot of people like grew up with it and have this like emotional connection to it, which I totally respect and I completely understand. Not having that, not great written. What would do I have it? What is it? Hold on. What does that say? Oh, do you know what sun, moon, rising means? So I am not an astrologer. Crystal and Sophia, who is my business partner, and they're an astrologer, and they're amazing. And they have basics of astrology all over their page. I highly recommend you go check them out. My zodiac signs, I am a Gemini sun, a Scorpio moon, and a Libra rising, which basically means I can never make a decision unless it's to help other people. That is like me. What would be some of your favorite books when it comes to spirituality and learning about it? Great question, and thank you for asking. It depends on the type of spirituality you actually want to learn about, because I think a lot of the books that are nonfiction, that approach like spirituality in general, that is way too general of a branch and way too expansive of a branch to actually get the amount of deep information that I find actually valuable for people that will help. I think there's a lot of valuable books and a lot of valuable niches. So it depends. Like, are you looking to understand runes, for example? Are you looking to understand spirit guides? Are you looking to understand how the universe communicates with you in like a understanding science side of way? There's a ton of different stuff. I would say niche down first. I'm actually not a super massive fan of a lot of the nonfiction books that are out there, and there's no one that I'm always like, oh, is this one? I always will recommend fiction first to understand spirituality as a whole. A couple different reasons for that. One is it models it. And you reading a model of how spiritual stuff actually works, even if it's in a fantasy world, helps so much more than trying to conceptualize it a lot, because you're getting that download and that activation at the same time. So you're basically like meditating on it as you're absorbing it. That's what reading fiction does. So I will always end up recommending fiction books depending upon, again, what a person is trying to understand, whether it's energy healing or how magic works, or how magic exists around us, or guides, whatever. There's different fiction books that are totally recommendable on all of that. But I will say, if you want to dive into specific areas of spirituality, look for that specific area. And if you're like, I don't know, I just like the whole thing, what feels the most fun? Read about that first. And then ask that question again. What feels the most fun? Read about that first. And again, if it's something like, oh, I need to know if there's like scientific backing for this. Oh, what was that book I just got recommended to me from a really good friend? I'll look it up and I'll make a video about it. But it has like stuff about scientific backing for spirituality. You can find books in that, or you can find books about house magic or fairies or whatever. So I highly recommend checking that out. Crystal and Sophia is their new handle, or the real Crystal Lynn on here. And they're the astrology. Yeah. The fact that we're both Gemini Sun and Libra risings, but you're Sag Moon. That's okay. Almost all of the people in my life have some sort of very intense Sag placement. I don't know what it is. My husband is a Sag sun, Sag rising, Gemini moon. And then my son is a Sagittarius and my dad is a Sagittarius. Like it's a lot. So I'm very drawn to Sages and people with heavy Sag placements. I feel intense when I read. It's like I'm drawn and I'm really there. Yeah, exactly. It's a form of meditation. It genuinely is. One of the biggest disservices I think our society has done to us as a whole is when we're a little kid, we're not taught to explore our imagination as being multifaceted. Anything that's happening in our head that might kind of be in an imagination bucket, our society is like, it's in the imagination bucket. It's all just one thing. It's all just your imagination. Instead of being like, oh no, there's a part of what we classify as the imagination that's actually you channeling. There's a part of what we classify as the imagination that's you meditating, of you astraling, of you doing all these different things. There is a part where things are pretend and you're just working out scenarios and being creative in a little space, which we would consider an imagination, but it's so multifaceted. There's so many different areas and things, and I wish they all had different names that we actually taught kids to differentiate in, because now as adults, we're like, oh wow, like I experienced this or I experienced that, whatever's coming up, and unfortunately we're experiencing it and throwing it into the imagination bucket when it's not, but it's always been thrown into the imagination bucket. And so when people are like, oh, is it just my imagination? My answer is always going to be like, yeah, it is your imagination. It's this part that's channeling, and that is still what we consider your imagination. So yeah, you reading and going into that, you're totally going into the meditative part of imagination. I think that's incredible. Is there anything spiritual / otherworldly that scares you? Yeah, there totally is. I'm not scared of it in the way that I used to be scared of it though. I used to be like very terrified of ghosts and things like that and things touching me. And I now have a lot of like protection level energy and things like that around me, so I'm less scared of it like that. But are there astral things out there that scare me? Yeah. Are there different beings on different planes of the universe that scare me? Yeah. Are there individuals that are out there that I'm like, oh, I don't want to mess with that guy? Yeah, totally. And there's definitely things that scare me still. And also, I'm still having an incarnation in human form, though I understand a lot. I know I don't understand. I mean, I know what I understand here is a drip in the bucket to what the universe actually operates as. And that alone scares me sometimes because I'm a human. I took the amnesia pill. I'm here in a physical form. And it's a hyperfixation of mine to figure out how the universe works and how all this stuff is coming together. But I know that the amount of knowledge cannot physically be held in my current state and incarnation. And sometimes that freaks me out. So yeah, there's totally a ton. What was that? Have you always believed what you believe? No, I haven't. It was a journey for me to get here. I'm very, very confident in my beliefs now, incredibly so, purely because I've been shown them. Other people have been shown them. It's been very deeply proven in my stance. Not saying that it even needs to be proven, but for me, I'm very confident in obviously all that I do now. But no, I was actually raised Catholic. So I was a Catholic till I was 15. Not heavily. We used to went to church every Sunday. Did all the catechisms, all of that. However, if that I think is part of the reason that I immediately went to paganism pretty much right after that. Not only was I seeing and sensing these feelings and things, but Catholicism is a polytheistic religion. Like they will call themselves monotheistic, but like they will worship angels. They worship saints. Like I've seen people kneel and cry at people's finger bones from saints from along. Like that's polytheism. Beside the point. That's my soapbox. As someone who literally is confirmed by the Vatican and all of that jazz. But no, I was a Catholic for a long time. And it never totally sat well with me. It never totally was exactly what I wanted. I loved the ritual element of it. Even as a little kid, it was a lot of questioning things for me in the Catholic Church, but also my parents were really, really open. My parents have always been, my parents are not judgmental people. So even when I have, like, my parents are very, very loving of everything I do now. Like, they totally accept it. My dad talked to us about astrology. Like, my first exposure to astrology is every day my dad would read me my horoscope out of the newspaper. Like, my parents are very open and very flowy. I was born and raised basically in California, so, like, it is a thing. But it's very stereotypical in that way. And my mom's also always been in the book writing world. So lots of like reading diverse literature. And every time a book would come out that would get even kind of big, even when we were little kids about a different culture, my mom would be like, you're reading this. And she'd be our librarian. So like we did a lot of that sort of stuff. So I had a very large worldview from a very young age. So even though I believed a lot of the Catholicism stuff, I was always open to evolve it. And then I did. And then when I started figuring out more of this stuff, it started making a lot more sense and feeling a lot more aligned to me. And I do still bring in some of the ritual elements from when I was a Catholic. Not saying I'm doing exactly like, I'm not snacking on Jesus crackers over here, but I still burn the same types of incense that they burn in the Catholic Church because it makes me feel really spiritual and connected because it used to. Hopefully that makes sense. How do you set space, boundaries? So when I set space, when I'm like doing readings or tarot or anything like that, a couple different things. I have a varying variety of shields. So sometimes I have shields, like if I'm going into a spooky haunted place, that are like incinerator shields. Like if anything touches me, you burn. So everything stays out of my bubble. But if I'm setting space in like a reading thing, I will shield it from anything that is not to do with the reading, which is not an incinerator shield or anything like that. It's just like I'm creating this space both in this physical zone. I do all my readings digitally and in their physical zone, and also like up a couple layers on the universe cake so that we have like an ethereal space as well to kind of have. And I will just kind of set that, clear that out, make sure it's just our stuff in that zone and set the intention for that space. For myself in my physical space when I'm reading, I need to have a lot of little things around me to fidget with, which isn't just a like, it's oftentimes helps me to tune in deeper, not just because I'm like fidgeting and doing something with my hands, but depending upon what I grab, it kind of helps me to get more insight a lot of the time. Plus I have a candle lit. Every time I've ever done a reading for you, there's been a candle lit. I guarantee it, because I really like that. Specifically woodwick ones, because it sounds like a campfire, which is just a thing. Also, I love to have a lot of grounding tools near me for my physical space to set that intention. So I'll have like my grounding orb over here. I have Hermes the hamster, who's a wormy. So he sits around. He has a little throne over here that he's sitting on. I have a little, or a heavy blanket that I'll wear, like things like that. So I have that nearby too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Frankincense and copal as well. Why would deities reach out to us? Seems like they'd be busy. Honestly, half the time it's because they're nosy, gossipy bitches. I'm not gonna lie. And I'm not even saying that like to be an asshole to them, but like half the time deities reach out to us because they want to know what the heck is going on down here. And they're like, oh, what are you doing? Tell me about that. What is that thing that you're using? Like truly, that genuinely is a lot of the times that deities are reaching out to us. They just want to be involved. They're like, make me relevant. Like, I want to know what's going on. Tell me about this thing. Like, I'd like a snack. Like, it truly. If your deities, like, if you're working with a deity for help and stuff too, oftentimes there's an exchange and they get benefit out of it. If a deity is like your guide, that's a whole different thing. That's like a negotiated relationship. If you want to start working with deities, I actually have a whole YouTube video on how to start because it goes kind of, there's like a process. It doesn't have to be a process, but I have a whole YouTube video that will help you totally work with your deities. Deities can speak all languages. Yeah. They can. Everything. So we're really confined by what our physical mouths can speak and what our brains know how to speak here. That's not the case. So oftentimes when I go to like different countries and I'll do like channeled history content, people will try to kind of give me like one of those gotchas of being like, oh, so you speak Latin? I'm like, no, but I just know what she's saying. She's sending me images. I have a physical feeling that backs that up. Plus I'm also hearing the sound of her voice. So those things combined give me the message, and it doesn't have to be in Latin because I'm using other senses. So the same thing with like ghosts are the only exception. Ghosts will talk to you usually in the language that they have. On occasion though, you can also get your just knowings, whatever, from them as well. That doesn't have to have a language barrier. So tons of different things. When it comes to deities, for the most part, they speak a lot of different languages. Ours down here in a physical incarnation is where we have this like massively limited capability to understand the amount of information that exists here. Other beings don't have that issue. Yes, this will all be recorded. I upload these to my YouTube after I do them. So it'll be in my YouTube in the next couple days. So you can watch all of it over. I also have a whole playlist over there of all of my previous lives as well, if you want to go check those out. I'm also going to do some fun YouTube videos. So in one of my Patreon tiers, you can actually vote on my YouTube content. And I'm going to do probably like a dragon video here soon. A what happens when you die video, things like that. So if you want to vote on that, go check out my Patreon. Plus there's tons of other rewards. Plus even my top tier patrons have access to my secret calendar, so you can book sooner than 6 months. All sorts of fun Patreon stuff. A deity could totally teach you French. Same with your past life incarnations. If you have a past life in French, you can actually, or in France, you can actually learn French from your past life. It is not impossible. It's a challenge, but it's a thing you can totally do. Did Anne Boleyn and the other five wives come through during 6? Only Catherine Parr did, actually. I asked her to come, and she is so passionately about it. It's really interesting. Because I kind of left it open. So I went and saw 6 with my daughter last week. God, time is fake. Recently. And I asked any of the people who it was about to like come through, and only Catherine Parr did, and she was so thrilled that she's being remembered in like literally any way. Like literally anyway. She was just like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I just want to be remembered. I did so much stuff. And then if you've seen 6 or you know the point of the play, she's like all about it. All about it. So she came through. She passion. Loved that she was represented in pants too. Was very passionate about the pants. Was thrilled that her character was wearing pants and no one else was wearing pants. That was like a big... Really like the pants. Which is funny. Do I have any advice for anyone starting to follow their intuition? Yeah, you got this. You can do it. You can totally do it. I believe in you. Make it fun. It's going to work so much better if it's fun. If you follow your intuition towards the things you actually like, it's going to be so much more fun than following it towards things that you just think you should, or people like, start by channeling this thing, but if you're not super passionate about it, you're going to jam yourself up. Truly, follow the things that feel fun and exciting for you. If that's tarot, amazing. If it's watching ghost hunter shows, amazing. If it's whatever, as long as you're doing it safe, remember your spiritual hygiene, and you're following the things and exploring the things and learning about the things that make you excited, you're going to do it right. You got this. Yeah. Oh, yay! Oh, I'm so glad that energy grounding was helpful. Oh, you are so welcome. I was like, we need tools. We need tools to ground this energy this week. Like, let's breathe this out. Because we really needed it. Oh, we super duper needed it. I asked what Dee Dee's accents are like. When I try to talk to Thanatos, he sounds British. He would sound British. I only laugh because Thanatos, I've talked to him multiple times in the last couple months, and he does sound very proper. He tries to make it like a big deal, partly because he got tied up in a closet in that one myth, and I think he's trying to combat that. You can look it up. It's a whole thing. I won't embarrass him on here, but yeah. So it depends on how they want to show up. I will say it really depends. It's more of an attitude thing than it is an actual accent thing. Some of them are really hard to place, I will say that. And I will say when I talk to fairies, sometimes they give me accents that I like can't even emulate. Like I can't even repeat it now to give you an example of it because it's so weird. I'm like, I don't know what that accent is. I can't make my mouth do that accent, but I like get the impressions of it and hear it in my head. So accents are weird when it comes to guides and stuff. So for sure. I do have an amazing hype team. Oh, it's so wonderful. You guys are all the best. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Go over spiritual hygiene. Spiritual hygiene is clearing, grounding, and shielding, and occasionally calling back your energy. There's tons of different clearing, grounding, and shielding exercises and activities out there. I have a whole YouTube on it. I have tons of ways to do it on here, like on a playlist and everything. But it is clearing your energy, making sure it's just your energy in this space. Grounding your energy, making sure your energy is pushed into the earth and the earth's energy is coming up to you to help you have a battery, and shielding, not from other people's energy necessarily, but just from like negative entities, psychic attack, any other yucky spiritual stuff, anything spiritual you don't want to come into the space, that sort of thing. It's just the ability to establish and understand your energy and its boundaries and making sure you're safe. Yeah. Loki does show up with so much attitude. Loki actually brought me my husband. It's a whole story. He's okay. The Norse pantheon, despite the fact that my basically grandfather, my dad's family is all from Norway, like off the boat. Half his family is off the boat Norway. Half his family is off the boat Scottish and Irish. All with the last name Anderson spelled differently. So all Norwegian. Just keep that in mind. I keep thinking, I'm like, okay, I'm going to work with the Norse deities. I've tried. They're not interested. Like, we don't vibe. We're not super connected. They don't really send me messages. I never am like, oh, is this, they never stand out to me. Runes work for me. Cool. We're kind of in a thing there, but like no ancestral connection there. Other pantheons, I got a lot more connections going on, with the exception of Loki brought me my husband. which is a story. I've shared it on here. I'll probably make another video about it. It's a long story, so I won't share it on the live, but that's the thing that happened. And then Ratatasker, who is the squirrel who lives in the world tree. Yggdrasil. There's a squirrel. His name's Ratatasker. He'll talk to me on occasion. That's it. Why? I don't know, but that's how it works. I have channeled Hestia. She's amazing. She gives the best hugs. Like literally the best hugs. She's awesome. Yeah, and she's just warm and lovely. She's no drama. If like you need comfort in some, like a deity to comfort you, she'll comfort. Do you think a birth chart reading helps someone identify how to develop psychic gifts? If it's done by the right astrologer, I think it does. Astrology is a whole... I'm not an astrologer. I'm not good at astrology. I don't understand astrology all that much. I mean, I understand a decent amount, but that's because I have a Krista. And Krista, my business partner, their handle on here is Crystalline Sophia. They are an incredible astrologer. They've studied with all of the like modern day masters. They've read all the ancient manuscripts. Like, they're incredible. And they can go in and be like, oh yeah, these are some psychic things you should focus on based on your birth chart and your placements and all of that sort of stuff. I don't think that's something all astrologers can do or focus on. I know it's something they focus on. So it really just depends on the astrologer that you're working with. Not saying you have to go to Krista or something like that. I think other astrologers can do that too, but I would say just make sure that it's someone who says they can do that and can help you with that, because there's so much information on astrology charts. Yeah. What's my favorite form of divination? Fabulous question. I am a card dragon. I hoard them. I love cards, specifically oracle cards. Tarot cards, not as much because I don't like rules. I really like open-ended and many, I like shades of gray, which oracle cards are all shades of gray, where tarot has a lot more rules. So love oracle cards. Those are probably my favorite form of divination. I also really, really, really like lithomancy style stuff, pulling crystals, that kind of thing. I use chess pieces on occasion. I have a whole bag of different types of chess pieces and different weights and whatever, and I'll pull those. Those are really valuable and helpful for me, so I like that. I also do like a pendulum on occasion. It just depends on the mood that I'm in. And dowsing rods are fun too. I haven't played with them a ton, but those are really fun and they give you a lot of good energy, so, and understanding. Is it true that dragons hoard gold with their shiny things? No, they don't always hoard shiny things. They do have a tendency to hoard things that they like, but not in like the schmog sort of way from The Hobbit. More of a, like, they're choosy about it. I once met a dragon that really liked special sticks or stick-like things from different realms that had meaning, and he would use them as like a casting lots sort of way. It was a whole thing. So it depends. It depends. Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, I have to go make some dinner. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you for hanging out with me. This is just, I love doing these lives. They're so fun. And thank you for the wonderful questions. And like I said, this will be on my YouTube if you want to check that out to see the recording of it, as well as all my other lives are always recorded and put up there. And I do have a podcast. We've been talking a lot about what's going on in the world lately. I know a couple of you had questions about that. So if you want to take a listen to the podcast, it can probably answer some of those for you. It's called The Alchemist's Inkwell. It's on all the major podcast places and YouTube and all of that sort of stuff. So if you want to check that out, that can answer some of that. And yeah, if you want to take any of my courses or check out any of the stuff I offered, it's on my website, including my Patreon, which is ever expanding, and we have so much fun. So thank you guys so much. Oh, thank you for saying you love my lives. It makes me so happy. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for trusting me with your energy and with your time. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. I hope you have an amazing rest of your evening. Mwah! Bye.